Good evening. Good evening, everybody. We'll call the meeting to order. Before we have roll call, a couple quick agenda changes under Chairman's Report. Purchasing policy disclosure form in Transform, Illinois. Would just be a couple quick items I'll talk about. With that, roll call, please.
Kelly? Here. McDonald? Present. Nicolosi? Here. Red? Delgado? Present. Schultz? Here. Tassoni? Present. Webster? Here. Westcott? Present. Wilson? Present. Biondo? Present. Booker? Present. Boomer? Here. Crosby? Here. Fellers? Here. Fiducia? Here. Burl? Present. Gorel? Here. Hoffman? Present. Jury? Present. 20 present, nobody's absent.
Perfect attendance. Thank you very much. We have Mr. Jury with the invocation. Please stand.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity we have to serve the people of Winnebago County. Guide our choices and our decisions. Our community is on the brink. Children are dying. Violence is rising. People are losing hope. Help us to do what is needed to fight crime. Give us wisdom and patience to pursue the safer, more prosperous community. And bless those who serve in uniform both at home and abroad. We thank you for the life and service of a precious member of our community, Mark Mayhew. One moment. And amen. Allegiance to the flag.
Thank you, Mr. Jury. No awards, so we'll move on to minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from December 8th, 2016 meeting and to lay over the minutes from December 22nd, 2016. I got a motion by Mr. Wilson, a second by Mr. Nicolosi and Mr. Fiducia. Any board member comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Minutes pass. Announcements, communications. Ms. Mullins.
The items listed below were received as correspondence.
Okay, and we'll place those on file. Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're having another event that will take place at 1901 West State Street. It's called Skills to Pay the Bills. It is a professional development workshop. It's Wednesday, January 18th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Free outfit for Mount Sinai, professional clothing closet for all people that attend this workshop. Free lunch will be provided, and we'll have available child care if there's a need. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Any more board member comments? Hearing none, I'll move on to the chairman's report. And I got a couple items. Thank you for your patience on just me. I'll shoot through these, none of which we're taking any action on, of course. But nepotism policy discussion, I just wanted to have the whole team together here and just say we're going to refer to the operations committee, to Mr. Jury's committee, discussion on nepotism in Winnebago County government. And I would just say this for what it's worth is we'll maybe be making administratively a recommendation to that committee to consider. When it comes before that committee, what they do with it, move it on, amend it, I just want to start a discussion on it. But that said, here's what I would share is I'm really excited, and I want to applaud the countywide elected officials. I see Mr. Hintz is here tonight, participated in really one of the first times in recent memory where the countywide electeds came together. And as the returning board members know, but maybe the new folks don't, a lot of the independent electeds set some of their own policies. And we had a discussion amongst the electeds just about, hey, some departments do not have a nepotism policy whatsoever, but they may do X, Y, and Z, but it's not in writing. Other departments have a very formal policy, such as the state's attorney. At first, I was told we didn't have a policy, but we do have a very brief one that says we won't hire anybody in our own, that works in our department. Well, here's my thoughts is, it's really exciting to me that the countywide electeds are talking about maybe some common language, since they have control over some of their policies, just so we're consistent. I think that's very good from a risk management standpoint. It also shows them working together, so thank you very much to the electeds. But then you look at the county board office and the board and the departments within our purview, which are many. I think that there's maybe an opportunity to consider some of the language with nepotism that maybe the state's attorney and the other electeds have, applying to some of the other departments, some of which are represented here, maybe HR, Joe in highway, that type of thing. But then I back up and say, is the time right to discuss a more restrictive approach for the county board chairman's office, and maybe even for county board members? And I'm not suggesting that should be or shouldn't be. I think we should have a discussion on it. Here's why. The chairman, the CFO, your county administrator, those working very closely with me in my office, and county board members set budget. So we're the unique group of people that impacts every other department. So with that being said, do we want to have a discussion, and I'm just asking we do in Mr. Jury's committee, around the topic is, do we want to have consistent language, but then do we want to have more restrictive language for folks that are sitting in front of me, myself, and the folks in my office, because we impact everyone else's budget, and I don't want there to be the appearance of something being influenced because of a connection 3 departments over, because again, we set the budget. Just want there to be discussion on it in that committee. Wanted to bring it to your attention and say, hey, we'll throw around some policy for you guys to discuss, and let's see where the discussion goes. The next item real quick is the board retreat on Saturday, December 21st, January 21st. It'll be at RMAP. RMAP is located across the street from Coronado. You'll get the exact address in the mail and some agenda. What I think will be one piece the board will like is, so we take some of our department heads, some of the people working in my office, and we break the board into small groups. And just topics I hear you guys bringing to my attention, concerns I've heard from you directly, those are some discussion topics. And you guys do the talking, we'll do the listening as part of the retreat. I promise we'll get you out of there, feed you lunch, and get you on your way so you can enjoy the second half of your Saturday. If you are not able to make it, if you could do me a huge favor at the end of the meeting and let Mrs. Halstead know that you can't make it to that would be appreciated, so we don't order food for you or plan on you being there and you can't. Next item, real fast. Oh, yes, sir, Mr. Jury.
Sorry, I didn't hear. What time is that?
It'll be at 8:30 in the morning, Saturday, January 21st, so a week from this Saturday, across the street from the Coronado at RMAP.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you, sir. Next item, the Chairman's Advisory Council. Again, we have some outside kind of industry experts in the private and public sector, just advising on best practice. An example is our Finance and Systems Committee. We did ask Mr. Biondo to serve on that as a board representative, and you do have some recommendations that'll be coming forward. Again, just so there's no confusion. They advise, we make decisions, the board in particular. So, when an outside group that is purely advisory says, hey, here's some things we think you might want to consider, that is not any more than just professionals making professional recommendations. What we do with it, maybe we take action. Maybe it makes sense, maybe we say, hey, noted, and we don't make any changes at all. But it's just some things that'll be coming in the next few months. Just a heads up again on that. Website, I want to thank Mr. Nicolosi for kicking off a discussion. I want to say this, I think that our website is our front porch. It says a lot about our county, and there's a lot of information on it, but it is the front porch in which the majority of the community has their first interaction with us. Yes, we're in the people business, but we're also, it's the digital age, and they go to the website to find people, information, that type of thing. I agree with Mr. Nicolosi, Mrs. Halstead, and others that we need to relook at it. And then the auditor, I want to thank Mr. Crowley talked to me the other day, and he's recommending as our auditor that we relook at language on the website because it's outdated. Now, I go to the website, and Mr. Nicolosi goes, and we might not like the look of it, the layout of it, it's counterintuitive, but our auditor's saying, hey, look at the actual words, and that, let's update it as a way to better communicate with the community. Here's the other point that Mr. Jury made, and I'm sorry to go on, but I think there's some good points I want the whole group to hear. He made a point, he goes, we get FOIA'd like crazy. And that's okay, because the public has a right to know some of this information. But if we relay out our website where information that's public should be accessible to the public anyway, is there in an easy way to find it, maybe they won't have to FOIA us as much for information they want. I'm not saying that saves all kinds of money, but it would allow some really talented people to focus on their core mission a little bit, because we get a lot of FOIAs in every department of the county, so it's just something to look at. Discussions coming forward on that item. I will give an example real quick. DuPage County, so they have a bid process. Let's say they're buying $500,000 in toilet paper. On their website, when they have their board minutes, their board page and all that, they will have minutes from a meeting. It'll say, we're buying toilet paper, resolution 102. But then you click a link and it shows the form that the vendors who are applying or putting themselves forward fill out to win the bid. But the one thing that I think we do is look at what other counties are doing through the website and look at, hey, are the forms we're putting up there giving full disclosure? One of the things DuPage County does is they have, if you made a political contribution to any elected inside the county and you're putting your name forward to bid on documents, it doesn't mean you should be excluded, nor should that give you an edge in a low bid situation or a quality bid thing. But it's disclosed by people, so that way you can't say we didn't share it, not playing games. We have nothing to hide. So these type of things here are things we may want to look at. Board administration communication. We sent a little memo out today. Just here's one thing I would say. If there's an item before a committee, so if there's an item in front of Mr. Jury's committee, Mrs. Haymaker, our new county administrator, would be the staff liaison. Mr. Jury is the chairman that you all said you wanted to be the chairman. So if you have an item that you want to discuss that's on that agenda, go to your chairman of your committee and your staff liaison first. One of the things we want to avoid when we're not exactly overstaffed this day are well-intentioned people with smart questions, and we have 3 different staff members getting asked the same question, and because they want to do a good job for you, they're all doing the same thing at the same time, so we're triplicating efforts. This is a way to just make sure we get you what you need and we respect the committee process. If something's not working, yell at me. Give me a call, we'll talk. You can call me anytime you want. So that's just one thing. Let's give that a try and talk as we go. Lastly, if you have a minute and you're online, go to Transform Illinois. It is not Transform Rockford. There's a statewide effort and it's on a bipartisan basis, where some counties are doing some things that might even be other municipalities on good government. Some of it's sharing of resources when we don't have enough money. Some of it's consolidation. A gentleman from DuPage might be coming to town, and McHenry, where there's a democratically elected chairman, and there's some things where we're just looking at opportunities. How can we do better? I'll keep you up to date on some of those items, if that's okay. So that's as long as I've been chatting in these board meetings, but there's a couple of things. You're going to get memos. I want to thank Mrs. Halstead on some of these memos coming out. If we get 2 or 3 things we think you need to see, we'll drop you an email. It's not a way to sneak things by you, but sometimes the whole group needs to hear some of this stuff, and we'll try to get it out to you. If it's too much, yell. If it's not enough, we'll kind of we'll find our sweet spot as we go through the next few months here. So with that, we can move on. Any quick questions on any of this stuff? Yes, Mrs. Gorel.
Thank you. Under committee business on the memorandum, where we have all the different departments we should be contacting, it would be nice to also have phone numbers.
Thank you. Yep, we can get that amended and out to you again. Thank you very much. With that, we can move on to the consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve I got a motion by Mr. Jury. I have a second by Mr. Nicolosi and Mrs. Gorel. Any comments on our consent agenda for this evening? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Consent agenda pass. Next item is our reports from standing committees. First Committee Chairman, Mr. Biondo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Finance Committee report, I'd like to move to approve resolution awarding bids for latex, vinyl, and nitrile gloves. There was 4 people that actually got the bid: Harder Corp, Midline, Moore Medical, and Uline. It was for $48,856.70. It was within budget and was unanimously approved by our committee.
We have a motion by Mr. Biondo. May I have a second? Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Jury, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Biondo.
All right, the next 3 items, C, D, and E, they were all approved unanimously, 7-0. Is a resolution authorizing settlement of a claim against the County of Winnebago entitled Sherry Holder versus Winnebago County for $20,204.94. Also one entitled Sharon Tucker versus Winnebago County for $24,915, and a resolution authorizing settlement for Beth Moser Store and Beth Metlock versus Winnebago County for $51,912, and I move for their approval.
We have a motion by Mr. Biondo. May I have a second? Mr. Girl and Mrs. Crosby, and this is on it's on C,
D, and E.
C, D, and E. Any discussion by board members? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Biondo.
All right, and then I also move for the approval of resolution authorizing settlement of a claim against the County of Winnebago entitled Kenneth Austin versus Winnebago County for $12,385.60, and we have a couple of abstentions.
Okay. We have a motion on letter F by Mr. Biondo. I have a second by Mr. Jury. Any discussion? Yes, Mr. McDonald?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wish to abstain in this vote.
Yes, Mr. Booker?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wish to abstain on this motion.
Okay. Any other discussion by board members? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And then we have the 2 abstentions with Mr. Booker and Mr. McDonald, and with that, motion passes.
Right. That concludes our report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Biondo. Next item is Zoning Committee, Mr. Webster.
Got him, Margie.
Thank you. Zoning Committee has 2 items this evening to be voted on. These were read in at our prior meeting. Z1416 is a map amendment, and SU0816 is a special use permit. It's a companion piece to the map amendment, and that comes with conditions on the special use permit. And I would move to approve both.
So we have a motion on number 1 and number 2 by Mr. Webster. May I have a second? Mr. Fellers, Mr. Jury, Mr. Boomer, and Mrs. Gorel. Any discussion on items number 1 and 2 were taken as a package? Okay, we'll do a roll call on this. Are there any board members who oppose this motion? Seeing none, clerk, please cast a yes vote for all members present. Motion passes, number 1 and 2.
Okay. Then Tuesday, January 17th, the Zoning Board of Appeals is scheduled to continue the hearings again on the asphalt plant project. And then Wednesday, February 8th, the Zoning Board of Appeals has a regularly scheduled meeting. They have seven items on the agenda, And then Wednesday, February 22nd, those items will move to the zoning committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Webster.
All we have.
Next item, economic development, Mr. Westcott.
Thank you, Chairman. We have no report.
Okay. If I may, I'll just add one thing on economic development specific to host fees. Mr. Dornbush and Mrs. Holstead are going to be the liaisons on that committee going forward. So if there's an item that is before Mr. Westcott's committee, reach out to them. If it's specific to host fees, we have a lot of money going to a lot of different organizations, and we've asked Mrs. Holstead to help us create a little bit of a template for making sure we know what we're getting in return for that investment, and that we're doing that ahead of time so that when we go to Mr. Westcott's committee, it's documented and it's there to tell the story, and then you guys can go through your process. So again, just a heads up on that. So thank you very much. Next item, Mr. Jury, Operations Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Boy, I can't wait till we get that transparency. I hope we get it before I die. It's been one of my goals. But if I go, we've got a good corner, so I'm not afraid. The Operation Committee has one resolution before you tonight. It's an award of a proposal to win cleaning services, and I move for its adoption.
We have a motion by Mr. Jury. I have a second by Mrs. Crosby, Mr. Hoffman. Any discussion by board members? Oh, I'm sorry, and a second by Mrs. Red. My apologies. Motions before us. Any discussion by board members? Mr. Nicolosi.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to kind of comment on this. I'm pleased that it went to a local vendor. I know previously there was a chance it was not, and I'd like the opportunity maybe in our operations committee to kind of look at more opportunities, of course, within the letter of the law, where we can work more with local vendors, keeping the money in Winnebago County. So thank you very much.
Okay, that's noted. Thank you very much, sir.
Yep.
Any other questions on the motion before us? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. And this notice for the Operation Committee, we will have a meeting on Tuesday where we will be discussing this, the purchasing item along with the nepotism. So be aware, set your calendars for Tuesday.
This Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jury. The next item of business, Public Works Committee, Mr. Kelly.
First item we have is an ordinance establishing a speed zone on the streets of Westlake Village subdivision in Pecatonica and Burritt Townships to be laid over.
Okay. Noted that it'll be laid over going forward.
And next we have a resolution authorizing the award of bid and execution of a construction engineering services agreement with Fairgram and Associates for replacement of the Weldon Road box culvert north of Cunningham Road. And I move its adoption.
We have a motion by Mr. Kelly. I have a second by Mr. Westcott, Mr. Booker, Mr. Webster, and Mr. Tassoni. Motions before us. Any board member comments or questions? Yes, sir. Mr. Biondo.
It doesn't cost the county anything.
There's no cost to the county. It's out of the township bridge fund.
Thank you.
Please note that in the minutes. Thank you very much for mentioning that. Any other board member questions? This will be a roll call. Are there any board members who object to this motion before us? Seeing none, then I'll ask the clerk to cast a yes vote for all members present. Motion passes.
And that concludes our report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kelly. Next and final item, Public Safety Committee, Mr. Fiducia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have no report, but we will be having a joint Public Safety Finance Committee meeting Wednesday, January 18th, room 305 at 5:30, and I urge board members to attend. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fiducia. The one item I believe that's bringing the two committees together is the laid-over budget amendment request by the chief judge, if I remember. We're bringing those two committees together for that, so, okay. That concludes committee reports. Any unfinished business? Any new business? Yes, sir, Mr. Kelly.
Yes, this past week, I've heard reports several times extolling the great achievements that the city of New York has made in reducing their violent crime rate. Understand that they went from being about the murder capital of the country down to having fewer homicides than the next several largest cities combined. So maybe we ought to be taking a look at what New York's done.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll definitely note that. I do know that in Chicago's the third largest city in the country, third to LA and New York, and I think they have like twice the murder rate, just as one example. Yes. Mr. Webster.
Move to adjourn.
Got a motion to adjourn. I got a second by Mr. Wilson. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion's approved. Have a great night. Thank you, everybody.